Hello viewers, subscribers and other two-wheel enthusiasts. Welcome to my channel, Grover's Ebikes. Now today's topic is going to be how to make a U-turn on an e-bike. Now making a U-turn on any bike is a tricky proposition because all bikes are made to go in a straight line. Bikes are made to go straight. If you're going above 20 miles an hour, you can jump off your bike and the bike will still keep going in a straight line. The bike really doesn't need you assist at high speeds. Now, the problem with a bike is when you're trying to turn. Turning on a bike is when most accidents and when most falls happen. So you have to get used to making a turn on a bike if you're going to ride. And the way to make a turn on a bike is to make sure that your handlebars are turned, make sure that you're looking where you want to go, and make sure that you have your hand over that rear brake to slow you down around that turn if you start going a little wide. So here I'm going to demonstrate how to make a U-turn on an e-bike. Now the U-turns on an e-bike is basically the same as on any bike, because if you're used to riding a regular bike, you will find that you have to pedal around that corner. The bike is not going to coast around the corner by itself. Without power going to that rear wheel, you're going to have to put your foot down and the bike is going to fall. So if you want to go around that corner, you're going to have to make sure that you have power going to that back wheel. And the problem with a regular bike is if you misjudge your speed, you're going to go wide. And it's kind of hard sometimes, with experience you get it right, it's kind of hard sometimes to control your rate of speed around a corner on that pedal bike, because your hips and your hip joints are not that sensitive as to control that, you know what I mean? Eventually you get it, but if you're trying to make a tight U-turn on a pedal bike, you see how difficult that is. Because if you don't have the right rate of speed to zip around that corner, you're gonna have to put your foot down or you're gonna fall. So that's what I'm gonna be discussing here today. So here we go. Now, as I go around these corners, my right hand is controlling my throttle and my left hand is controlling my rear brake. Now the reason I have my hand over my rear brake is to prevent myself from going wide when I make a U-turn. And I have to control the throttle to make sure that I have constant power going to my rear wheel. Now the tighter turn I want to make is the more throttle I have to give my bike so that it can zip me around the corner. The tighter the corner, the more throttle you need. The wider the corner, the less throttle you're gonna need, because you need the power to zip you around a tight corner. A tight corner needs power. A wide corner doesn't need all that power. You can stay upright and go around a wide corner, but for a tight corner, you're gonna need to give a little bit more throttle, and then you're gonna have to control that throttle with your back, you don't have to, but especially for a beginner, when you're starting out, make sure that you're controlling that turn with your brake, with your rear wheel. Now stay away from that front brake when you're trying to make slow turns. That front brake could be a troublesome partner in like you see right there. I made that turn, it was kind of wide because I didn't control my rear brake as much as I should, so I went wide. So always make sure that you're controlling that rear brake, so when you're giving power to that back wheel, when you're making that turn, when you're giving power to that back wheel, so make sure you can go around that turn, you're controlling your rate of speed with that brake. So that's one of the techniques you can use to make sure that you don't go wide on your turns. Now you can see your turns are going to be much smoother and much more consistent when you're using that rear brake, because you're not going to keep going wide. And another thing to make sure that you do is turn your head. You see that I got my head turned, my turning radius is decreased, and the turn is much smoother. They're again a much smoother turn. Turn your head and eyes, make sure you're looking where you want to go, and you're going to be sure to go there. That's for riding any kind of bike. It's always good to make sure your head and eyes are turned in the direction you want to go, and using that rear brake to slow yourself down to make sure you don't go wide. Make sure you're keeping constant power. Once you find the sweet spot, make sure you keep that sweet spot. That sweet spot is where you're going to be going. Is what's going to keep your power going to that rear wheel, so that you can make that smooth turn. Keep your sweet spot. Make your turn. Turn that handlebar all the way around until you complete your turn. Once you complete your turn, then you can lay off that brake a little bit, and until you need it again. And then you come up, you slow yourself down, you turn your handlebars, you make your turn. You make sure that you're on your sweet. That's a problem sometimes too for a lot of people. When you turn your handlebars, you lose your sweet spot. And that's something you really have to practice on, because that's how a lot of people end up in trouble, because they turn the handlebars and they lose their sweet spot, and they end up having to put their foot down because the bike started going too slow. Or if they lose their sweet spot, the bike ends up going too fast and they went way too wide. So that's two things that happens in between the sweet spot. You end up going way too wide, or you end up putting your foot down. So that's why they call it the sweet spot. If you don't find it, you're going to end up going wide, or you're going to end up putting your foot down. So try to find your sweet spot, and once you find your sweet spot, then you're going to be using that rear brake to control your speed going around that corner. And that's going to be creating a nice, smooth turn on that corner for you. Just like that one right there. Nice, smooth turn, like a 9-foot turn. Because you shouldn't need more than 12 feet. So that's it, folks. Way to make a U-turn on your e-bike. Thanks for watching.